Well, for those of you who love Rabbi Mimran, here we come. Let me bring this down a little bit more. So I've actually, every time I learn one of these chapters, I practice it the next day, but 2 days later I'm forgetting already to keep track of what I'm doing. I'm just working through it. That's what I feel. So anyway, it's something we have to keep working on. And here we come over here, and it says that this is the last part of the previous shir. He says many people are so imprisoned in their minds that the beauty of nature does not really exist for them. So it is possible. I mean, life is challenging. There's no question about it, and we have difficult periods. But by the same token, we can reorient ourselves to watch what's going on and become more aware. And this will allow us to see the beauty in things. Now, he writes this in part 14, and as we approach and we're getting closer and closer to a different section of this book, which is more practical. It says, God essence, the source of all things. He says, so this is taken to the Drashas Atzalacha, I don't know it, here it is. We are likened to a ladder which stands on the earth, and its head reaching to the heavens. This is through the root of our souls from a very high place. And through this we can rise up and get closer from one level to the next, each person in accordance with his refinement and righteousness. Within these higher worlds we go up and down in accordance with our deeds. If good, then we go up, and if God forbid the opposite, we descend. Now, I need to read it again and read it so great. So he wants to say we're like a ladder. So you're the ladder which is down in the earth, I guess in a low place. But the ladder goes beyond physicality. This is through the root of our soul. So how do you make this happen? Because the root of our soul is beyond reality. This is through that what I say is our perception of the real world. This is through the root of our soul from a very high place, because the root of our soul comes from the Ein Sof Baruch Hu. And through this we can rise up and get closer from one level to the next, each person in accordance with his refinement and righteousness. Within these higher worlds we go up and down in accordance with our deeds. If good, then we go up, and if bad, God forbid, the opposite, we descend. Now he says the Holy Eitz Chaim, beginning of Shar Igulim V'Yosher. So this is the Holy Eitz Chaim, of course, written by the Riyah Kodesh. At the beginning of one of the gates, there are 50 gates in the Eitz Chaim. It's called the Shar Igulim V'Yosher of balls, and this is really the very beginning, and lines. That means straightness and balls. States that in the timeless realm where God dwells, and the essence of everything that ever has been and ever will be, past, present, and future, all exist simultaneously in an unmanifested state of oneness and perfection. Really needs to be said again. He says there is a such thing as timeless realm where God dwells. Now, time is everything to us. We have only so much time for whatever. And the essence of everything that ever has been and ever will be, past, present, and future, all exist simultaneously in an unmanifested state of oneness and perfection. Totally beyond anything the human mind can ever imagine or comprehend. As it is written, Ayin lo rasa, no eye ever saw it. No human mortal has ever seen the world to come. This is where time does not exist. Whereas in our world of seemingly separate forms, timeless perfection is an inconceivable concept. Here, even the soul, which is the light emanating from the internal source, the Ein Sof Baruch Hu, is terribly or nearly imperceptible due to our limited perception. Now, just as saying that what he's been saying previously is that we are swamped by our ego mind. So we're very concerned, which means we're very concerned about our bodies and our physical appearance and our physical state. It is known from the Kabbalah everything that exists has a soul, a God essence, and therefore has some degree of consciousness. So you think you put this together with Rabbi Menachem, and what Rabbi Nachman has been saying. He says, even a stone has rudimentary consciousness and purpose, otherwise it would not be, and its atoms and molecules would disperse. Everything is alive. The sun, the earth, stars, planets, animals, humans, all are expressions of levels of consciousness in varying degrees. Consciousness of the soul manifesting as form. Now, let me read this again. He says, even a stone has rudimentary consciousness and purpose. Otherwise, it would not be, and its atoms and molecules would disperse. So therefore, the fact of it condensing itself into that stone or whatever inanimate object we're talking about, that condensation is its purpose. It achieves its purpose by being condensed, but it's a very low, it seems to be, purpose. He thinks everything is alive, he says. The sun, the earth, stars, planets, animals, humans, all are expressions of levels of consciousness in varying degrees. Now, he says of what? They're expressions of consciousness. Consciousness of the soul manifesting as form. Now, this is the part you have to really worry about. He says the sun, the earth, stars, planets, humans, everything are all expressions of levels of consciousness in varying degrees. In other words, if we're not aware of them, they don't exist. It's like the tree falling in the middle of the forest. Does anybody know? But you can become aware. All are expressions of levels of consciousness in various degrees. Consciousness of the soul manifesting as form. So this is really also what Rabbi Nachman is saying too. The intelligence, he says. But here he says the soul, which is that same concept. Therefore, the entire universe and all that is in it comes alive when pure God energy transmutes into these shapes and material forms. Look at the millions of life forms on this planet alone. In the sea, on land, in the air, and then each life form is replicated millions of times. To what end? In the sea, most life forms don't survive for more than a few minutes after being born. So he says, that's in the sea. The human form turns to dust pretty quickly too, and when it is gone, it is as if it had never been. Is that tragic or cruel? Only if you create a separate identity for each form, if you forget that its consciousness is God essence expressing itself in form, this really cannot be internalized fully until you realize your own soul essence as pure godliness. Now, let me read from this part again. Try to sift the word a little bit. He said the human form turns to dust pretty quickly because he says that the form is really only a manifestation of something internal. And when it's gone, he says, it's as if it had never been. I'm getting older, and when you get older, you're not going up anymore, you're going down, or you maybe go deeper, but you're not going up anymore. And what the future is that you could see that it's evaporating. And is that tragic or cruel? I mean, that's the way it is. Just think about, if you're older and you think about all the people who are gone, well, the world is moving on and forgets them. Only if you create a separate identity for each form. If you forget it, that its consciousness is God's essence expressing itself. Now, I think I'm not only if you forget that its consciousness is God's essence in expressing itself in form. Now, this word consciousness is really not easy for me. This really cannot be internalized fully until you realize your own soul essence as pure godliness. So, seems like the key here is that this really cannot be internalized fully until you realize your own soul essence as pure godliness, and then you realize that all the physicality that's around you, that is you, that is your your fingers and your toes and, everything else that's about you, and all of the energies within you and the emotions within you are really only manifestations of something that through this bodily form. This really cannot be internalized fully until you realize your own soul essence as pure godliness, and then everything else is a filler around it, and eventually disappears. The timeless realm where God dwells and the essence of everything that ever has been or ever will be, past, present, and future, all exist simultaneously in an unmanifested state. What does it mean, manifested? It means it has still no physicality, but it's a state of oneness and perfection, which is the true reality. Well, this is Baruch Flashman, and this has been Rabbi Mimran at the Tikkun Elevator Kollel.